Yes, you are known for such a rock star. We are starting the program.
Real quick, turn to your neighbor, real quick, turn to your neighbor, say, good morning, neighbor.
Good morning, neighbor.
Say, hey, neighbor. Guess what? Say, hey, neighbor. Guess what? You're beautiful. And your response to be, well, thank you, you're not that bad yourself. Now, turn back to your neighbor real quick, say, hey, neighbor. We need each other. To keep each other free. Now say it like you mean it. We need each other. To keep each other free. The person at your table, if your neighbor's good with it, give them a high five if they're good with it. Here we go. We need our energy to be incredible. Let me get a high five. Because the more energy you emit, the more energy you will get your conversations. I encourage you all to be authentic and to be as open as you will in our conversations. Can we do that, family? Yes?
Yes.
I say friends and family because I feel like when you say ladies and gentlemen, you leave people out. So, do we want to leave people out?
No.
So, if we don't want to leave people out, let's say, let's not leave people out.
Let's not leave people out.
All right, here we go. Hey there, black child. Hey there, brown child. Hey there, young child swinging from the tree. Instead of whips and chains, now they just shoot me. See you next time with bulletproof skin. They figured out a new way to kill us again. Hands up, don't shoot is what we say. I can't breathe, don't kill me that way. My spirit don't die. God loves me. Tell the pearls of the world and newborn babies. Ferguson, Missouri is an epidemic, not a situation. If it's not an epidemic to you, that means it's not affecting you yet. I bet if a group killed countless people group like you, it would be an epidemic to you. But hold up, stop and frisk this. Around the age when I was old enough to go outside and play by myself, my mother said, boy, when you get stopped by the police, if you get stopped by the police, because they do that sometimes, don't do anything that might get you killed or locked up. In fact, stay in this neighborhood, on this block, in front of this building, so that you're close to home, baby. And that's exactly where these boys are murdered, in their neighborhoods, on their blocks, in front of their buildings, and close to home. This is poverty of a soul living in the wealth of pain. How do you explain ripping the life out of an unarmed body? And I don't know what to say. So I began to act like my name is Michael, Erica, Oscar. And I lived in Ferguson, Brooklyn, and Oakland, living like them black boys do, dying like them black boys do. And they say, 2-5, please don't overreact because black boys aren't under attack. And that's mostly said by those who are not black. And I feel like I'm under attack. See, it's hard being human when you started out as property. It's hard being human when you're the anomaly. It's hard being human when you're minoritized. Understand it's hard being human when you learn that once you consider just 3/5 of one. See us as heartbeats and not target sheets. And this ain't just about black boys or 200 kidnapped girls or condemning all the police in the world. This is about deconstructing systems of oppression, breaking away from the chains, unshackling our brains and seeing all humans as humane. Turn down for what? This gives us every reason to simply turn up. Let's sacrifice life. Unlace our eyelashes. Let them flutter to the floor. Catch as much as I can in my eyes so that the dirt never gets in yours. Come on now. Is sacrifice that hard? Or is it uncomfortable? Is privilege a right? Or is it comfortable? Ferguson, Missouri's deconstruction of the myth that we live in a post-racial consensus. So we either work together or remain separate forever. Not a moment, but a movement. How much death does it take before we see life? They've been murdering black men since Jesus Christ. And the Lord said, Black lives matter. Everybody matters. Not just white bodies matter, but when young white bodies get snatched, everything is used to catch those body snatchers, but not kidnappers of black and brown bodies. It's true. Check 1776, 1812, and 1492. When white bodies leap from rules, remember, black and brown bodies fight suicide too. Recognize that darker bodies get abused too, just like white bodies do. But it seems to not matter till it happens to a white body. But anybody that's hurt should have somebody alert, a body that can assist in the matter. We all matter. When black and brown bodies get hurt, it should hurt white bodies too until those bodies are rescued. All I'm asking is that somebody can remind everybody that nobody is a nobody, and that black, brown, and white bodies are all beautiful human bodies. Good morning, everybody.
Woo!
Let's get it, guys.
beautiful and powerful.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Richard Rhodes. I'm a pastor here at Grace Chapel, and I can't tell you how delighted I am to offer you a warm welcome. I am so glad you're here. We're a congregation that's very diverse in a lot of ways, and we're learning how to love each other. And this is part of it, is these kinds of conversations. So I just want to say welcome, feel at home here this morning. And we're going to have a great, great time learning from each other. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Wow, they're a tough act to follow. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Well, thanks for braving. I said, oh, I don't know, we're just going to have a few people, but looks like everyone came with their coats and with their hearts open. The Town of Lexington Human Rights Committee welcomes you to our annual MLK Day Community Conversation on Race. For those of you who don't know me, and it looks like a lot of my friends came, I'm Mona Roy, Chair of the Human Rights Committee. Thanks so much to Dean Adams of Brandeis University for that beautiful opening poem. Thanks also to Pastor Rhodes for welcoming us year after year, and Grace Chapel for welcoming us this beautiful, beautiful space that will be utilized all day for a myriad of activities. We have a full program planned, so I will speak even faster than I normally do to get started. We were really blessed to have our opening poem on diversity, equity, and inclusion composed and read by Dean Jamil Adams, who is the Dean of Students at Brandeis University and a well-known local poet. You will get a chance to hear more from him at the end of our program, as well as at the Carey Hall ceremonies at 11 o'clock, which I'm sure all of you will be at. Our topic this year is the necessity of discussing race and racism at home. Our first speaker is Dr. Ilana Wolkoff. Many of you heard her speak at an earlier Community Coalition event this year. Dr. Wolkoff is an educational and school psychologist. She has worked with children and adolescents in a range of educational settings in the Boston area for over 20 years. Dr. Wolkoff is currently an assistant professor at William James College in the Department of School Psychology. Our second speaker is Dr. Stephanie Harvey. Dr. Harvey is a community activist and educator who specializes in social justice and equity in education, particularly in addressing the disparities for youth of color. As a former dean of students, she espouses proactive measures to support students' social and emotional development rather than punitive measures. In addition to being an expert, she's also an alumni of Lexington High School and a current LPS parent. Please give them a warm welcome. The PowerPoint. We're just getting the PowerPoint up. We'll come 1 second. Okay. In the meanwhile, if anybody is at a table where you don't have a table number, please find a seat at a table that has a table number, or take your chair and move it to a table with a table number. We're incredibly blessed to have so many people here that we don't have quite the right amount of chairs at every table. And that is really a great problem to have. If you have room, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you have room. Just one. So there's the person. Oh, we have 2 chairs. Then put 2 hands up. There you go.
It's always this morning.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Right. Bear with the shuffling. That's fine. Thank you so much. If everybody could quickly get to their seats, we really appreciate it. Over there, there's room there. Before we get started, I would request that everybody please put their cell phones away and on silent. We are really fortunate to have these experts graciously take time out of their busy schedules to come to Lexington to share their insights, and of course they deserve that minimal courtesy. So please turn off, put your cell phones on silent and put them away. There's nothing more important than what these two are going to say today. And now let me hand the program to them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ilana Walkoff, and I'm thrilled to be here and talking about one of my favorite topics in the world because I think this is so critically important. So I work with parents and teachers to help people feel more comfortable talking with children about race. So why talk about race? Oops. We're all good? There we go. Okay, well, first of all, children notice people's skin color as young as 3 years of age. And they start to notice inequities relative to skin color by 5 years of age. Okay, so kids are noticing things, right? In fact, kids notice everything, right? Especially even preschoolers, you know, we start to, what do they do? Why are you wearing that coat today instead of the other coat? Why are we going to school this way today instead of the way we usually go? Everything, they notice everything and they ask why about everything. As well they should, because they're trying to understand the world around them, right? So when we, because of our discomfort, might shut conversations down, there's an impact of that, okay? One thing I'd say is that families of color tend to talk about race a lot more at home. Why is that? Well, it's because issues related to race and discrimination come up on a daily basis, and so they need to talk about it on a daily basis. But for white families, that's not necessarily true. White families don't necessarily recognize the impact of race and discrimination on their lives on a daily basis. And so those conversations don't happen. When we don't talk about race, we start to communicate that it's taboo or that it's unimportant. Why isn't this working? Wait. There we go. That it's taboo or that it's unimportant. Basically, if the result of our silence or our shutting down conversations is that children won't ask questions. They perceive that this is not something that's speakable. And they stop asking questions, but they don't stop thinking about it, and they don't stop trying to make sense of what they're seeing around them. And when they're lacking the opportunity to talk to people that they trust about something so important, they start to figure out in their brains as they're growing up, well, this must make sense somehow, and their brains try to make sense of the inequities that they see and make them seem like they're almost logical, like they make sense, which they don't. Research has found that conversations about race and about racism lessen the development of prejudice and bias. So we really have to have these conversations. The lack of conversation can increase racism and bias, and the presence of the conversation can decrease it. So they're essential for us to have. But why is it so hard? Well, number one, race is considered a taboo topic in our society, especially in racially mixed settings, but even without racially mixed settings, it's considered taboo. Number two, many of us have been brought up, especially white people, have been brought up to believe that the United States is a just society. We believe that there's a meritocracy and that things are fair, and even when we see inequities around us and we know that they exist, somehow there's an internal, like a cognitive dissonance. It doesn't fit in with what we hold to be true, which makes it very awkward for us to talk about the inequities that we see in a way that's comfortable and coherent. So we end up stumbling over what we're trying to say, and then we end up just shutting down because it's uncomfortable. Many people, I'm having trouble here. Right? Sorry about that. Don't make it speakable yet. Okay. Many people, particularly those who are white, recognize the impact of racism on other people's lives, but not on their own lives. And that's key. We need to really understand the impact on our lives as white people as well. And finally, we don't always know what to say. And so that, just not knowing what to say, can have a big impact. Okay, now we can make it speakable. So what do we need to do? We need to make it speakable. We need to notice race. We need to talk to our children about it. We need to communicate with them that our society is unequal, and that we know it's unequal, and that it matters how people are treated, and that it matters what opportunities people have. These are all conversations that we can have. And we need to communicate with our children that if things are unfair, we all have a responsibility to try to make them more fair. And we need to communicate with our children that they can ask questions to understand what they observe. That's what we're here for. We're the trusted adults. We're the ones we want them to be talking to about things that seem confusing or don't make sense. We need to take a listening stance. What does that mean? That means that we need to lead with curiosity. We need to stop talking and listen. Because a lot of times when we get anxious, we just keep talking. And so sometimes when we get anxious, we actually need to just be quiet and listen. And it allows us to know what our children are thinking and their perspectives on the world. And it's good to know those. We get to know them better. We get to know how they're making sense of the world. We can learn from them. It gives us more perspective and a better sense of what we need to be talking about with them. We need to learn about their experience and their perspective. And we can also model the ability to make space for people's perspectives and opinions, which is a really important thing to model for them. Then consider sharing your view. And I want to say that in addition to leaving space for them to ask questions and say what they want, we can also look for opportunities to bring things up. Racism and discrimination is everywhere. So there's no lack of opportunities to bring up the subject. We could, in TV shows, in movies, the news, current events, there's always opportunities. And we can look for those and bring them up so that we make space and we model for kids that this is speakable, that this is something that we can and should be talking about because it matters. Take your time to respond. Think about what you want to say. Come back later. Sometimes we feel like, if you ever leave a conversation that feels kind of awkward or difficult about racism or about something else, and we leave and we're like, oh, I should have said this. I can't believe I said that. I should have said that. Go back later and talk about it again. You say, I was thinking about our conversation, and this is what I thought. Nobody's going to feel badly that you were thinking about a conversation, that it was important, that it mattered. Go consult with a friend, consult with a colleague. Say, I had this awkward conversation with my kid and I didn't really know what to say. They asked a question, I didn't know what to say. Think about it with somebody else. Then go back and let them know, I was thinking about this and this is what I thought. Now the one caveat I'd say is, I think in general, everybody loves that. Teenagers, if anybody here is a teenager, sometimes when you say, oh, I want to talk about that again, they're like, no, do we have to talk about it again? But here's the thing I'd say about teenagers, is even though they don't want to talk to you about things again, or they want the conversation to be short and one and done, and even though they say that, it doesn't mean they don't hear us, okay? So just remember that. They'll still hear what you're saying, even if they're like, oh, they still hear it. So don't hold back. Do not frame racism as a problem only for people of color. It is not just a problem for people of color. It is a problem for all of us. There's a cost to all of us for people not reaching their potential in our society. If everybody doesn't reach our potential, we all lose. There's a price for everybody because we have racism limits our relationships with our colleagues and our neighbors. What? We have a poor understanding of each other because of racism. And we don't benefit from each other's expertise, knowledge, and experience. And there's social tension. We all pay a price for all of that. And we need to really deeply understand that we all pay a price for that, and that it matters. And that all of our lives will be better if we can address racism and discrimination. And the only way we're going to really be able to do that is by talking about it and addressing it and moving forward and helping kids to feel empowered to make change. Know your values. Now we all, oh yeah, I know what my values are. And we kind of think like, oh, our kids will figure those out just because of what we do and the way we live, and they'll know what our values are. Well, maybe. But it's also important to be explicit about our values. This is what we believe. This is what I think is important. This is what I base everything that I do on in my life. This is how I make decisions. That's really good to model for kids. And it's important to model for ourselves, because we can also all forget our values. They get a little pushed aside with the stressors of daily life, right? So we want to be really explicit about our values. What is important to me, and how do I want to live my life, and model that for our kids? It's a reference point. It creates a framework for discussion. And it helps us to think critically about our own behaviors and our own assumptions and our own biases, okay? And it also, as things come up, if kids say, oh, I saw this happen today, or somebody said this, put it in the context of how does this fit in with our values? Is that consistent with our values, or is it inconsistent? And finally, what I'd say is tolerate discomfort. It's not always going to be comfortable, and that's okay. That's fine. Notice when you're feeling anxious or uncomfortable. Take a deep breath and listen before talking. And go for it. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
All right, before I get started, I want to make sure that everybody has a pencil or something to write with, and like just a little inch of a paper, or it can be the back of your name tag, sticky thing, just a little something for you to write with before we go ahead and get started.
Can you get me one, please, and you have one?
Yeah, if you don't, just raise your hand and we'll get you something. All right. So as you're still getting though, that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So thank you for having me here today. I'm going to walk us through an experience because I believe it's through experiences that we learn best. So I'm not just going to sit up here and talk. We're going to kind of have an interactive experience together. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with you writing your name. So with the hand that you normally write with, go ahead and write your first name and your phone number. Your first name and your phone number. Your full name.
Yeah, your mom's phone number. First, you could even make up the phone number.
Full name and phone number.
Say both.
All right. Thumbs up if we've done that? All right. Now go ahead and give your phone number to the most attractive person at your table. Just kidding. Just kidding, just kidding. All right, what I want you to do is now do the same thing but with your opposite hand. Go ahead and do the same thing with the opposite hand. Write your first name, your full name, and your phone number with the opposite hand.
I can't do that.
It'll take me all morning.
Take about 20 more seconds, no pressure.
No practicing there.
All right. Let's come back together. So that was our first experience that we had. What did that feel like when we wrote it the second time? Can we just yell out, shout out some adjectives that came to mind? What did it feel like when we did it the second time?
Uncomfortable.
Awkward. Embarrassing. Frustrating, difficult, uncomfortable, and weary, exactly. And that's our first experience, and the reason that I do that is because I want us to all feel what it feels like to go into these type of conversations. When we go into conversations about race, or we go into something that is usually uncomfortable, when we did it our first time, that was natural, that's our day-to-day. But when we did it the second time, a lot of us had some discomfort in that, or we felt embarrassed. And those are the type of feelings that we're going to have when we go into these conversations. But it's important for us to recognize that and to challenge ourselves to stay in that space. Because it's in those spaces where we're going to have the conversations that we definitely need to have. All right, thank you for participating in that. So my first slide here, it talks about the fact that race is constructed. It's something that we all have been taught. If you see here, children will play with everyone until a parent or somebody in our world tells us not to. Kids are naturally going to love each other. Kids are naturally going to want to play with each other. It is only when we or when an adult or somebody puts into our brain and socializes us to think that it's not okay to be a certain way towards a certain person because of the color of their skin. And that is exactly what we need to make sure that we are having those conversations about. A lot of us like to say that we're colorblind, we don't see race, we don't see color. But when we're doing that, we're actually denying the opportunity to have a discussion about the very system that offers other people in our society benefits, and they give them different institutionalized privileges against other people, and thus they create a power hierarchy. That's how we initially create the two differences, where we have a higher standard for some folks, and then other people are marginalized. We all do this because of something we call bias. We have a bias. We have to all acknowledge that we are biased. I want you to turn to your table partner and I want you to just tell them, when you look at this picture, which of these don't belong? Just which of these are different? Which one of these don't belong? Just go ahead and talk to your table partner and then we'll come back out. Can somebody share out which one does not belong? You kind of get, you sat at the wrong place, man.
The bed.
The bed does not belong. Why?
Because the other stuff you can do in an office.
The other stuff you can do in an office, all right? Anybody else have a different perspective? Right here.
I think none of them.
Why? Say more. All right, anybody else? All right.
He said they all belong.
The book. There's furniture.
Okay, the book. So we had 3 different people, and 3 different people looked at this a different way. And I'm sure at your tables you all had a different perception or a different answer to which one does not belong, right? And in reality, this young man said none of them belong, right? Which that's an interesting perspective. But it's important for us to realize that we are all biased, that our brain is going to go through what we already know. Our brains are very lazy, and therefore we always go through associated patterns that we have created within ourselves or that we've been socialized into creating. And it's through those patterns that we need to make sure that we're really understanding how we're modeling what difference is and what difference means. It's important for you to think about how you talk about difference with your own children or with your own communities in your own spaces. I like to think of this quote here by Ani DeFranco, and she says, when I was 4 years old, they tried to test my IQ. They showed me a picture of 3 oranges and a pear. They asked me which one is different and which one does not belong. And in that moment, they taught me different was wrong. And I think that that's really important, again, just thinking about how we teach differences and what that means. This next slide goes into an experiment that was done years ago in around 1940 by 2 researchers, Kenneth and M. Clark. And what they did is they interviewed a number of different children to gain their racial perspectives. They asked children different questions like which one is nice. It was a difference between a black doll and a white doll. Which one is nice, which one is pretty. They've even redid this study because it's been so powerful. And what they learned in that study is that kids have been socialized again, and they think they have all these different ways that they interact with different people based on the color of their skin. Unfavorably in these experiments, a lot of the kids pointed to when they thought about negative images or negative adjectives to the black child, and when it was more positive or things that they would rather play with or who's more pretty, they pointed to the white student. And I mean the white child, the white baby doll in this picture. And again, it's important for us to think about what is happening in those messages, what is happening in that time. I want us to go on a little bit more and think about when we don't address things like that. This is something that's called microaggressions. How many of you have heard what microaggressions are? All right, I'm going to attempt this even in 10 minutes to show a quick slip of this video. It's about 45 seconds. It's going to tell us a little bit about microaggressions. Or not. It's okay. It's coming? You have to like change the screen thing though. It's okay. Let's not do it. I know what that music is. How many of you have heard of microaggressions before? Okay. Excellent. So with the video, if we get it up here, great. If we don't worry about it. Microaggressions, this video, and I encourage you to just go home and Google it. Just put in microaggressions and mosquito bites, and it will tell you this. Basically, what it talks about is that microaggressions are like mosquito bites, right? They're those common insults that happen every single day, and to some people, they happen more than others. And they're constant, and they're annoying, and they can fester on you just like mosquito bites are. And what they are is they're small little comments that people are saying. But in those moments when they have those small little comments, what they're doing is that they are constantly reminding other people of their second-class group membership. It's constantly reminding people of the marginalized population that they are marginalized, that they are less than another population. And it's within those, and that's what we have control over. When we hear microaggressions, we can stop them. We can stop and say, we can challenge each other. We can question, what are you really trying to say here? What do you mean when you're saying this to us? Because when we don't address microaggressions, then they turn into something larger, which we call macroaggressions. So this next slide and my final slides talks about, sorry, we're too fast. if you look here, this is something that's innocent, and this is, I will give my student credit, I teach at UMass, and they created this slide. But you look here, and we think about macroaggressions. When we sit here, this is two people in our society who we respect highly. We have LeBron James and we have Giselle. So this looks like this is nothing, right? When we think about macroaggressions and what happens when we don't address these small, innocent things, and we have something where you can sit around and think maybe this was a coincidence, maybe this wasn't, but this is a picture that was taken years ago, and this is something that's recent. And when we think about how this made it to print, when we think about all the people who was around the table and everything that has to happen in order for something for this to go to print, and that nobody sat there and questioned this, or nobody wanted to challenge this, or nobody wanted to invite and lean into that courageous conversation, is that's how we continue to do these things. And I just want to remind us that it's just in 1 minute that we can change. We can reframe somebody's thinking in that. And I chose purposely to do this with pictures instead of words, because I want these images to stick in you when you are thinking and you are faced with these type of conversations. And as I end this speech, I would just like for everyone to think about, again, that it only takes 1 minute. Only 1 minute that you can do to reframe your thinking. I'm going to read a quick poem by Dr. Benjamin E. Mays that writes, "I only have a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it. Did not seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it." I just want to say again, thank you all, and just remember, it only takes a minute to have that conversation with folks so that we can reframe. Have a good day.
I really want to take this opportunity while our wonderful table reporters are furiously synthesizing everything that you all said, and then somehow boiling it down to those 4 points, which are then going to be reported to that wall. No pressure, no pressure. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for sharing your really some very deep experiences. We walked around, and many of you were very courageous in sharing your experiences, and we saw that many of you were taking in those experiences and listening, and I know that this conversation will last a lot longer, even after you leave this room. So please give yourselves a round of applause. So while your table reporters are furiously writing out the action item insight reports, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the many, many people who put this program together. The community conversation would not be possible without your dedicated table facilitators and reporters, all of whom do not have time to make eye contact with me because right now they're either writing or taking pictures of the notes. But please give them a round of applause. These are amazing people. And hopefully still my friends, they had specialized training in the middle of the day or in the evening. They were in hours of material. How many emails did I send? 10, 20, we're not counting. So many emails, and they'll probably get more emails from me after. So they really did a lot, and it wouldn't be possible. We weren't sure how many people to expect, but we never know, and it says a lot that they managed groups of 8, 9, and 10. I couldn't have done it myself, so thank you so much. These conversations are really just a start to the work. We have a lot of, I know they were mentioned at your table, but Cary Library, it's worth mentioning again, Cary Library has graciously curated book lists, age-appropriate book lists. So if you want to read stories to your younger children, we have that. If you have, for independent readers, we have books, and for adults, we have books. So shout out to Cary Library for curating this book list on short notice. We've also been gathering from our experts an extensive list of books, articles, podcasts, and videos on this topic. Before you leave, please do sign. We made it easier this year. We have table sign-up sheets because we didn't want a big line. So please, everyone, put your name and your email down. And if you want to get those lists, if you're interested in that. And if for some reason you don't get an email from us because we couldn't read your handwriting or we typed something wrong, you can Google us. We are the Town of Lexington Human Rights Committee. So you can just Google us and you can get in touch. You will be able to get in touch with us that way. And students, having said that, students, please be sure that your name is legibly printed and that your email is there if you want LHS service hours. I mentioned that this work always continues, but the work has already started in many communities. A shout out to our friends at Dismantling Racism. Please wave if you're part of Dismantling Racism. There's many of you. Much work is being done in small groups in our houses of worship, and our friends at Dismantling Racism asked me to mention that today at 4 o'clock, there's a wonderful show by Unmet Opera at 4 p.m. at First Parish to celebrate Dr. King's legacy. It's a moving performance with word and song. And then in February, ABCL, that's the Association of Black Citizens of Lexington, there might be a flyer there, I'm not sure, and the Historical Society are presenting the Black History Project of Lexington. The kickoff is on Saturday, February 8th at 10 a.m. And these two organizations are teaming up to document the history of the Black experience in town by collecting oral histories, photographs, documents, artifacts, so that we can help historians build a clear and complete picture of Lexington's multiracial history. So I'm sure that we'll all be looking forward to participating in that. I want to recognize the wonderful members of our community work group. We have the Lexington Human Rights Committee does much work throughout the year on programming and on policy, and the community events that we have, which are No Hate November, the Community Conversation on Race, and Race Amity Day, those work groups are open to the public, and we have had some very dedicated people who have got even more emails doing planning, prep, setup, cleanup, post-production. Just to pull this event together, this event happens because so many people do the work, and I'll give a quick shout out to them, even without last names looking at the time. Deb, Nancy, Sarah, Carolyn, Larry, B, Amber, Christina, Catherine, and Gwen. Please wave so everyone can applaud you. Special thanks to Jody Finnegan and Georgia Swan, finally standing together, for the co-chairs. Also special thanks to Metco and Barbara Hamilton and Melanie Thompson, who's someplace here at a table. Please wave Melanie for their guidance. They were really, very, very dedicated to help and frame some of these conversations. Did anyone have a bagel? Was it delicious? I think they were delicious because they were from Wicked Bagel. Give them a round of applause. We had from Stop and Shop. We had donations from Brugger's. We had some. But of course, I think we can all agree that this conversation was well framed because of the speakers. The speakers, please give them another round of applause. Those speakers are wonderful experts, and they were brought to you by the generosity of our sponsors, Colin and Leslie Mason, the Human Services, and First Parish Church. Thank you so much again to those organizations for donating, and our work is supported by generous donors and also by some of the activities we do today. Bargain out there, we have shirts. Where's my handsome husband? Was he modeling one? Who was what? Gwen! He just loves being called out. So, and Gwen, we have pink. If you want to be one of us, buy a shirt. Buy a shirt, only $20, and apparently we've negotiated price at 2 for $30. So if you love these programs, buy a shirt. They're right at the door. In fact, you won't be able to leave without seeing them. We made it we spaced it just like that. I hope the table reporters have not been listening to me and have been working furiously because they're going to be walking their reports to the wall of enlightenment, where Pastor Rhodes, who's definitely going to walk over there real soon, was going to be standing with blue tape. I just want to watch this spread. He's going to be standing there with blue tape, and these will be taped to the wall so everyone all day long can see what you came up with as insights and action items. We're so looking forward to learning from you. Before anything leaves the table, facilitators make sure that we have a picture of that. And I think that's about it. I'd like to thank Grace Chapel for their supporting not only this event, but card making, fleece making, all day long. We expect that many of you will be back for all of these events. And I would like to give everyone one last, our sponsors, and all of you, again, give yourselves and everybody who made this possible, which seems like a lot of people as I read it. A big round of applause. And before I turn it over to Dean Adams for closing remarks, I'm very excited to hear what he's going to say. I have some good news. He will be at Cary Hall after this. So please, before you leave, take some food and then go to Cary Hall. Go to the Green for the Unity March and then march to Cary Hall. We love you here, and we definitely would love it if you definitely leave because we don't want you to miss any of the other fun. And now let me turn it over to Dean Adams.
First, can we give Mona some love? Can we give Mona some love? More love, more love, more love. Standing next to MLK right there. So, this is supposed to be the call to action piece. So this is what I would like for folks to do. If you are able and will, could you please just stand up if you are able and will. Please stand up for a moment. I want to show love to my table. Thank you to my table. Yay. Now, the other thing is it's not easy to just say, hey, get together and talk about race and racism. And you did that umpteen tables over. So if you would, turn to your table mates and say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Next, this is what I want you to do. Take out your cell phone. Real quick, take out your cell phone if you want. Take out your cell phone. And what I would like to ask you to do is turn to the notes section. If you have a note section in your phone, turn to the note section. What I would like for you to do is the following. I would like for you to make a note to yourself of one thing you will do to encourage the conversation, to move forward the conversation regarding race, and to decrease racism. Make a note to yourself. If you don't have a phone, then tell somebody who you know has a phone and they can put it in their phone for you. Write it, like, so can you write this down for me? Just make a note for yourself. What you can, there's any number of little things they can be from. The one thing I'll ask everyone to do is just try to think of someone who is probably least expecting that you can have a conversation about race about. And maybe just as simple as, how do you define racism? That could be how you started. How you define it, then you can talk about it. But understand you got to be willing to understand that these things take time. Because the conversation about race is one of the most difficult conversations there is on the planet. So don't just expect people to just jump into it. Allow it to take some time to happen. Yes, family?
Yes.
Yes. All right, so is there any one or two people that wants to share what they said they're going to do? Anybody? One or two people? One or two? The note that they wrote down. Any one or two people? One or two people? One person? In the back. Yes, you saved me. Thank you. What did you say?
Me?
Yes.
I'm gonna try to fight it from the bottom up.
You're going to start from the bottom up. I appreciate that. Yes. So love for that. Someone going to start from the bottom up. Anybody else? Anybody else?
We have the chair of the Board of Selectmen here. We'd love to share.
The chair of the board would love to share.
Yes, our
Here you
fearless
go.
leader, our fearless town leader.
I also want to just thank Mona and everyone on the Human Rights Committee for all the work put today together. I don't want to skip that thing, but my goal is to have a conversation about race and racism, not with my children, but with my friends when we're sitting at the beach over the summer, which is an awkward conversation, but it's bring it up in an awkward time and really learn from everybody.
Thank you.
Well, yay!
And we have one more. I got to show love to my table. I can't, but just use your big voice.
I can do that. So I talk pretty loud. So I was saying I was going to commit. There we go. Commit to keep teaching my young children, keep reading them books about people of different backgrounds, and also happen to be a college professor, so keep teaching my kids in those classes as well, how to sort of be a better citizen, how to be more accepting, how to be more sort of engaged.
I encourage you to connect with him on some of those books. I was fortunate enough to be at that table. The other thing that I want to ask folks to do with the phones, take your phones back out, take your phones back out. This is the call to action. You can do it right now. So there's any number of things you could have done today, but you chose to be here. You chose to be here, be present for this. And by that, you have dispelled any sort of stereotypes that people have placed upon you. You're not statistics in their very life. People will try to put us in boxes. You define those boxes. To that, let me hear you say, I'm not a statistic.
I'm not a statistic.
Say it like me. I'm not a statistic.
I'm not a statistic.
Statistics do not define my identity.
Statistics do not define my identity.
My identity defies statistics.
My identity defies statistics.
Statistics are static.
Statistics are static.
In the accomplishment of my beautiful destiny.
In the accomplishment of our beautiful destiny.
Statistics.
Statistics.
Move out of my way.
Move out of my way.
I said.
Statistics.
Statistics. Move out of my way.
Move out of my way.
We said.
We said.
We said.
We said.
We What I want you to do is on the count of 3 say consent. 1, 2, 3. Consent means to give permission. 1, 2, 3. On the count of 3, say consent. 1, 2, 3.
Consent.
Thank you. With the consent of the folks that, well, hold on, I'm gonna do something real quick because I don't want you to start breaking away yet. Jody, if you would. Jody wanted to say something quickly. Show Jody some love. Show Jody some love. Jody, yeah.
I know a couple of people said it, but I don't think people really realize what happened. Mona picked a bunch of people who do not know what they're doing on this day. Me and Georgia knew nothing. So she did most of the work. She was up for night after night, worrying, making sure about the food and the people and the training. She did a lot of work. So I really want to make sure that we thank Mona again. She deserves it. Makes her nervous, but she deserves it.
No, the speakers were amazing, and I know that you're ready to send us on our way.
The speakers were amazing.
Yeah, and thanks to
And I love
LexMedia
this
for
man's rap this morning. And I had one MLK quote that I wanted to leave you guys with. And it was not approved. It was, education is not enough. Education is the school plus character. You need both. So that's really important.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So, we're going to close out. Find someone that you didn't come here with, and with their consent, ask them to join you for a selfie. But wait a minute, do that on a count of 3, right? And then after that, I'm going to grab the mic one more time, and then we're going to all march over together to Cary Hall. It's going to be a beautiful movement of humanity to Cary Hall. But get your phones out. Get your phones out. If you see someone not taking the selfie, ask if they want to be a part of it. On the count of 3, start taking selfies and get your MLK t-shirts. 1, 2, 3. Take some selfies.